All right. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Never Stop Healing podcast. This is your host of the day, Cade Archibald, and really excited to be with everybody today. We're going to be covering some really cool stuff on thyroid hormone and immune health. Before we dive into that, I want to cover a couple things before we jump into the topics. And so just a reminder, I want to make sure you guys are all involved and know how to get involved in our Health Accelerator Challenges community. And so that's our hacks. So if you haven't done that, every Wednesday at 4:30, we are, Regan and I are on with our community doing our Health Accelerator Challenges. Right now we're doing the 60-day reset. It has been phenomenal. Seeing some really cool transformations, but go to acueastwest.com/hack. That's HAC. And grab your seat there. And that's a year-long program that we do with our community. And so very beneficial. So right now we've been doing our challenges. We have 6 challenges a day. And so if you're not in it, part of the hack community, you can still participate in these challenges. And so I think really cool. First challenge is sleep. So hopefully you guys got some good sleep last night. Getting at least 8 hours. The ideal time frame is like 9:30 to bed, 5:30 to rise. So early to bed, early to rise will make you, what's the saying? Healthy, wealthy, and wise. So there you go. And then second is cutting out sugar. Your third challenge is getting some really good exercise. So hopefully you guys are doing that. And then number 4 is heat and cold exposure. And then let's see, 5. I keep wanting to go to mindset morning is 6. I'm missing number 5. I'm missing 1 here. And that is, so we covered, I need to go through my checklist. I don't have it in front of me, guys. Sorry. But anyways, hopefully you guys are doing awesome on your challenges. And if you are listening to just the podcast, dive into that. If you're here live on the webinar, hopefully you guys have had full access. I think a lot of you here that are on here live are already hack members. So thanks for joining us again today. So we got, hydration is the one I'm missing. Thank you, Diane. Saved me there. Hydration, yes. So make sure you are getting your hydration. Usually when you wake up in the morning, you're at least 8 ounces depleted in water. So make sure you wake up, get some good hydration, add some minerals, some electrolytes to your water, and be feeling much better. Helps clear your system. So today's topic, and Reagan's going to be joining us here in just a moment. Got stuck in some traffic, so he'll be joining us. And he'll have some presentation, but we're going to be diving into some things on thyroid hormones and autoimmunity. And so I want to cover a few things that you guys, just kind of putting a question out there. If you've done any testing for your thyroid, I think what we've found when patients come to our clinic with thyroid testing, there's just some very, most doctors are looking at your T4, free T4, your TSH, and maybe one other marker, whether that's T4 or T3. And what we found is we're missing a lot of crucial data on how healthy someone's thyroid function is. Is there autoimmune involved? Because typically in about 95% of cases, or at least female cases, it's autoimmune related rather than just a thyroid problem. It's actually your immune system is attacking the thyroid. And so many things you can do, but I think starting with making sure you have the right tests and you know what's happening with your thyroid, because a lot of we have so many patients that come in that have these thyroid symptoms. And if you point to just specifically it's the thyroid, based on the symptoms, yes, that can, give us an idea. Okay, I think we have thyroid problems. But then if we get the right tests, that's when we can actually know, is it the thyroid? Is it an issue with communication between pituitary gland and the hypothalamus and the thyroid, or is there some conversion issues? And so these are all crucial things when looking at your thyroid, that you got to get the right testing in place rather than just making some assumptions. Regan, how's it going?
Going really well. Yes. How are you doing?
Doing great. Just diving in. So we talked a little bit about the challenges, and then talking about thyroid hormone and immune health is the topic we're diving into. And so, yeah.
Well, good. Well, yeah. And you were just talking about testing, because here's what we've seen on a regular basis is people come in and they're like, no, I've had my thyroid looked at and it looks fine. And my doctors, said I don't have any problems. And then when we look at the labs, it's like 2 markers, right? And so maybe I can give everyone an idea about what we want to look at. I've got a couple of case studies I want to go through today and talk about this relationship between the thyroid, the growth hormone, and then kind of continuing on a little bit on sarcopenia and hypertension. But one of the things that we look at when it comes to thyroid is you want to look at your thyroid peroxidase antibodies. You want to look at thyroid globulin antibodies, T3 uptake, total T3. So there's a bunch of markers that will give you a much greater insight than just depending on just kind of relying on T4 and TSH alone. So yeah. So we'll jump into that.
Awesome. Before we jump in there, Diane had a question. Ordered your pickleball electrolytes. When's the best time to take it?
Nice. Oh, those are good. The best time to take it is, first thing in the morning, and, when you're getting your workout on, and then, ideally do some around midday, the afternoon, and then a little bit in the evening before you go to bed, about an hour before you go to bed.
There you have it. Nice. Yeah, get those electrolytes pumping.
Yes. All right. Well, let's talk about thyroid, because it's interesting, because I had a patient come in just the other day, and she was just so stressed, and so one of the things that we do when people come in, and I'll share this little insight with you, is we have this process called the 3-4-5 method. And so it's really powerful because we start looking at things and we say, okay, well, if you've had thyroid issues, there's 4 different components that you want to look at. And these components are the physical traumas that you've had. They're the chemical, they're the emotional, and then there are the immune traumas. And so with the thyroid, what gets missed in most cases is the fact that there's this whole plethora of interferences that can go on, because in our model, and especially in the looking at things from more of a holistic perspective, instead of just throwing a medication at the thyroid up front, which is the easy way of going about it, and you kind of ignore the underlying causes, what we do is we take a step back and we say, okay, well, what about the physical traumas that you've had? Because this patient who came in, she was a ski instructor, did a lot of backcountry, and her thyroid really started to bother her after she had a pretty significant ski accident. So she was in backcountry, hit a tree well, had her neck snap back, thinks she may have had a minor concussion, but that just things didn't go well, and she was trying to get pregnant. And her body just, she said, yeah, she would conceive and then miscarry, conceive and miscarry. And that happened 3 different times. And, you know, she's a ski instructor up at Powder Mountain. If you guys know where that's at, Kate, I got to take you up there. It's pretty cool.
Yes, you do.
Up north. But holy smokes, we started, you know, kind of diving in, and I just did just a simple range of motion test for her. And what I found out is that, man, her neck was just seized up, and she realized, like, oh man, I can barely turn my neck. And that was one of the things we looked at, because then we ran her blood labs, and now that we have her blood work in, we're realizing that her inflammatory markers were through the roof. So even though her thyroid looked normal, and even she said, well, my doctor was willing to put me on some hormones if I really wanted to try it. But now we're realizing that part of her thyroid issue was due to that accident. So we're starting to work on her neck. And we've seen this in other cases where we've been able to resolve the trauma, and that's activated the thyroid. Because if you think about your thyroid hormone, it's a hormone that's very sensitive to stress in the body. And if cortisol is not balanced, the stress hormone, then it's really hard to have adequate thyroid hormones. And this means your production of thyroid will start to drop, you know, from a pituitary and hypothalamus perspective. Or you'll have the other component, which is where we see more often than not, is you don't break down that T4, that larger thyroxine molecule. It does not get broken down into the T3 molecule, the smaller molecule that can bind to the receptor sites appropriately. So physical trauma is something, you know, ask yourself this: if you have thyroid issues, you know, just do a quick check-in, see how your neck's doing, and see if there's any restriction there. Have you had whiplash? Have you had a concussion? Those things all impact the thyroid gland. Because if you think about it, your thyroid's right on your throat. Even if you have, you know, when goiters start to build up, those goiters can put pressure on nerves too. And this is a big thing that you'll see in thyroid patients, is that their neck starts to get a little misshapen, and then it pulls that C curve out of their neck, and then it puts their body in a little bit more of that kind of sympathetic nervous response, and then it changes their entire posture and entire structure. So you'll see people with pretty severe hypothyroidism, they kind of turn with their shoulders hunched, almost like their lungs are collapsed in. And so there's certainly postures. My Japanese teacher, Daiichi Soramachi, was just a genius at diagnosing people. He'd just feel their spine and say, oh, thyroid, and he could diagnose. They say, how did you know that? You didn't even look at my labs. And he would just he could just tell by their spine. Chieko was the same way, Dr. Mayakawa. But it was really cool to see. So I've been able to pick that up, where I see, like, yeah, maybe your labs don't show it, but your body, you're starting to show the posture that accompanies hypothyroidism. So just looking at these physical complaints, physical conditions, is a big thing. And this is why I love yoga. When you're doing like your sun salutations, you know, when you do down dog and then you do up dog, you know, you really want to stretch your neck and get a lot of blood circulation in there. So every day you want to just make sure you're contracting those muscles, because you have about 13.2 gallons of blood that's circulating through your thyroid every single hour. So it's a ton of blood going through there. And if you have constriction because you're looking down at your cell phone, or you're looking at a computer all day, or you have slouched over posture where your head's contracted, that starts to impact our thyroid glands. And our thyroid's hormones are responsible for so many things, from peristalsis in the gut, you know, to hydrochloric acid in the stomach, pancreatic enzyme release, detoxification, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. All 3 phases of detoxification require your thyroid hormone. Your brain activation, if you get brain fog, your thyroid hormones are responsible for triggering dopamine and serotonin. Your thyroid hormones are even necessary if you want to have reproductive health, which is what we were talking about this patient earlier who came in. So there's so many critical things. The next one is emotional. So, Cade, where would you say people struggle with emotional trauma the most?
The most so, yeah, really stress on whether that's family or work. Those seem to be the biggest stressors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, worried about either the future or the past and not being present.
Yeah, and what's the funny thing about that is the future, we make it up all the time, right? We have these big ideas about how bad it's going to be or how good it's going to be, and then it's not, or whatever it may be, but that's made up. The past is also made up, because we reconstruct the past just as well as we do the future. I mean, how many times have you, and I'm going to ask each one of you this, but if you go back into your past and you just say, well, what in my past, what experience, what was a big failure you had in your life that you just, man, it was painful and it hurt and it was like one of the worst things that ever happened to you, but it turned out to be the best thing. And, and then you now that you look back and you say, I went through 2 years of agony, maybe you had a divorce, maybe there was a death, maybe you got rid of a business partner, or you had some issues with your kids or whatever it may have been. But how many of you look back now and you say, actually, that was the best damn thing that ever happened to me. I'm so glad that I went through all that trauma. And so, so once again, we recapitulate our experience based on where we're at in the present moment, because all we really have is the present. But I see with the thyroid gland, anxiety can be one of the drivers with our patients with thyroid issues. And so if you have a lot of anxiety, that's fear of what's coming in the future. And so, so that anxiety is like, holy cow, what does the future, what am I worried about? What mistakes have I made in the past that's catching up to my future? And it's not quite here yet in the present. So you're constantly, kind of making up the past and making up the future, and it's holding your present hostage, is anxiety. Did I miss anything on that, Cade? Any insights on that?
No, I think you nailed it there. Yeah, it's really, yeah, that stress piece, and it's crazy. Like, if your thyroid's out of whack, you will experience that anxiety and emotion, and you might not even know what you're stressed about. You just feel that feeling of like something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, impending doom. Yeah, and if you think about where your thyroid sits, it's right on your throat. So from an emotional perspective, one of the things that we find is if we can release some of the trauma from the past and help you actually reframe your past, just like you create a great future, a brighter future for yourself, you can create a really amazing past. And it doesn't require much beyond just a little imagination, where you start looking at those experiences that have created some angst and trauma, and go back into those experiences and recognize them for something that actually helped you progress as a human and evolve. And so once you do that, then you start freeing yourself emotionally, and then your thyroid sits right on your throat. And so it's a really important gland for you to be able to express yourself. So if you find on an emotional side that you're having difficulty with fully expressing yourself and fully stating what you want in life, how you want your future to look, your present, the way that you choose to interpret your past, all those great life experiences, which creates meaning for us. Our experiences are all the bedrock of meaning. If you can go back and do that and then express those either in writing or talk about it, that's one of the ways you can free up the energy of your thyroid. And one of the things that we do in our Accelerate program, which I want to congratulate all you great members in the Accelerate program. Love working with you. And a lot of you probably noticed that we focus a lot on the HPA axis and on kind of the emotional side of healing in your phase 1. And we use two primary peptides, and there's several peptides that we use for the thyroid, like the ABP7, thymosin beta 4, depending on what you've got going on. But the primary peptides are Selenk. And you guys are going to look up Selenk and be like, well, Selenk isn't that antimicrobial? And it's like an anxiolytic. And it's what I always say Kanye West needed when he had his nervous breakdown, is he needed Selenk. He didn't need more Xanax and Percocet. Like he needed some peptides, because Selenk is a GABAergic receptor. It works on the GABAergic receptors in the brain. So you feel more connected, you feel more grounded, more creative, less stress. It gives you space mentally, because emotionally the problem that happens is everything gets compressed and your world gets smaller and smaller with stress. And I don't know if I'm the only one that experiences stress that way, but one thing I've noticed with stress is that my universe feels super tiny. Like the earth feels like the whole planet is inside the room I'm in. And then it gets so small, it's just inside of my little tiny head. And I have to wear like kids hats and stuff because my head's so small. So these little tiny problems, and it feels like you're the only one dealing with it. But when you can, what I love about Selenk is it puts your nervous system just in this place of calm. So all of a sudden you do the sprays in the nostrils and you start feeling like, oh wow, well actually the planet's a lot bigger than just little old me. And then you realize your ego has a big old bark but not a lot of bite. And it's like, well, I just wrote fiction for like 3 hours there. I had fight with my wife or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that was all about my little old brain trying to compress all the problems into one human being, which is so irrational. But with your thyroid, when using Selenk, your thyroid loves it because it activates GABA and it puts your nervous system in a calm place. But the other thing it does is it helps your thyroid eradicate infections in the body, because the thyroid gland, all that iodine, if you put iodine on a cut, and okay, we've done this when I've wrecked trying to follow you on a mountain bike, and then I'll cut up, put iodine on it in our wound kit, and it's an antiseptic, right?
Yeah.
Where still works. And that's what's going on in our thyroid gland. Your iodine is it's an antiseptic. It's zapping the infections. But what Selenk does is it zaps the infections in the sinuses and then helps eradicate them so that your thyroid doesn't have so much burden put on it. So it's this dual purpose. It removes the traumas from infection. It also helps remove the emotional traumas. And then epitalin is the other one, because what epitalin does is it works on the pineal gland. And so when you have adequate secretions of melatonin, and what we're finding with melatonin, if you read the Miracle Molecule, Melatonin, the Miracle Molecule by John Lawrence, I mean, Cade, you probably agree with me, whenever he speaks at Go Wellness on our stage, everyone's like, Dr. Lawrence uses such high doses of melatonin. It's insane.
Yeah.
We're like 15. Yeah, we use 15 mgs. And he's like 400, my Sandman. We're like, what? So anyway, but there's literally no toxic burden with melatonin. But what epitalin does is, instead of using it exogenously, it helps your own endogenous production. So that helps regulate the cortisol in your body. And then you sleep better. Your body gets out of stress. And then it activates telomeres. So it's a telomerase enzyme. And that's a beautiful process, because then you're more resilient to, chronic disease, and inflammation. Literally reverse everything in your body. And so it's a powerful thing. What else on emotions, Cade?
Yeah, I think we covered most all of it. If you put it in, it's a super complex topic, but if you just simply put, is that difference between being in the present and being so worried and concerned about the past and the future.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. But yeah, any past events that have created problems, those fester and cause a lot of problems for for people health-wise. So
Yeah.
you absolutely got to deal with those.
I think it's critical. And if you guys, we'd love to hear your insights. If you've got anything in the chat box, or that would always, obviously, we always love to hear from you guys. Keeps the conversation lively. But from a deeper kind of esoteric perspective, in Chinese medicine, there's a part of your soul called the Po. And so there's, they look at the soul, and the Po is that side that connects you to the animal world. So I don't know if you guys have pets that you love. Bev, I know you're on here and you got your horses and you got your dog named 5 Miles, so you can walk 5 miles every day. I mean, you got some creative ways of getting your exercise in. But for those of you who love animals, the thyroid gland is directly connected to your lungs and large intestine from an energetic perspective. And this connects you to the corporeal soul, or the side of your soul that is most connected to the earth and the planet. And so speaking your truth is a really important part of that, but also having a connection to a higher power, whatever that looks like to you. But really it's that expression when you feel connected to to the earth, you have that soul connection. That's what animals do. They're kind of a feminine part of life, where they're not always going to be as predictable as we want them to be. And that's where you see people losing it on their dogs. And you're like, well, you got a dog, that's your pet. Like, well, like chill out. Like, or when someone gets mad at you because your dog isn't behaved perfectly. And, like my dog, Andre, he's the cutest dog, but he humps everything. It's just weird. Yes, he's castrated, but it's just like embarrassing. It's like, I'm so sorry. And like some people are really kind about it. And other people are like, why is your dog humping my dog? Get him off. They're all like perturbed. I'm like, they're just animals. Like it's you've seen it, Cade, when we were out.
Yeah, I've had it happen to me. So
see, Cade's experienced it and he's fine. It took a few therapy sessions, but yeah, but this is the thyroid is something that connects you to that animal spirit, and the animal spirit is not always, we can't always control it. It can be a little chaotic. It can be kind of that, it's like the ocean, you never know when you're going to get a big wave that comes in and crushes you. But the cool thing about that is if you have a healthy thyroid, and that's where, it's really important to express yourself, singing, humming. Iodine is a really critical piece of that, not from salt. But having that connection, I think I'm going to encourage everybody for more of an esoteric, get connected with the earth through trees and plants, and yes, breathing, but also, maybe connect a little more with the animal kingdom and see how that feels. And for those of you who feel lonely, get a dog, get a pet, I want to get one of those huge cats. That would be really fun. Anyway, that's another story. So let's move on. I think we've covered emotional, chemical. Oh, it looks like we have a couple comments coming in. Oh yes, Diane, Sandman is Mitozen. I believe Mitozen is his website. He's got a couple different cool companies. So maybe Cade, you could plug that in for Diane. Yes, Diane, get the Sandman. I've done different cycles of that over the years since I've known Dr. Laurence, and it's, oh, thanks, Shawnee. Shawnee's already got plugged in there. I like what you said, Linda. Our perception is our reality. So just changing how we perceive a situation can make the difference between the stress of anger, for example, and the calm of anger. Yes, I love it. The calm of anger. That's, yeah, I'd love to, when you can convert that, that's big. Bev, good to hear from you, Bev. Yes, I did have an auto accident. Yes, I remember that this spring with whiplash and concussion. I did work on neck muscles, but now I believe it affected my thyroid. So I've learned a lot from this blog today. Good. I appreciate that, Bev, because, it's something that we don't think about is like, man, that shuts off the blood circulation, and that can really start impacting our hormones downstream. So, oh, Linda said the peace of happiness. Okay, versus the calm of anger, calm of happiness, peace of happiness. I think that's awesome. So thanks for sharing. Okay, let's talk about some of the chemicals. I know sometimes we get super in depth on the show about all the chemicals out there, and we freak people out, and That's not what I want to do today. I mean, we have other shows where we dive into all the glyphosate madness, and we try, I don't know if you remember, Cade, like 6 years ago, I was trying to raise $60 billion so I could buy Monsanto's because Bayer Pharmaceuticals was buying it.
Yeah, we didn't seem like we got very far there, but
yeah, I was really disappointed in our audience. I was like, all we're asking for is 60 billion so we can buy Monsanto's and close it down. But instead, Bayer bought it. And I've been to Cologne, Germany, where the Bayer headquarters are. And Bayer, just not to go on too much of a historical rant, but yeah, Bayer Pharmaceuticals funded Nazi Germany, Hitler's crew. They're like, cool, we'll fund your war movement as long as we can have access to the chemicals so we can make medicine. And thanks to the Rockefellers, they put in this whole motion in place where we're just swimming in chemicals. Like, you literally can't find any body of water in the United States without chemicals. And if you don't believe me, then if you say, well, my water is the purest water ever, well, go to ewg.org, so environmentalworkinggroup.org, and plug in your zip code. And I would love it if someone can show me a clean source of water where there's no contaminants. That'd be great, because there's going to be natural contaminants. Like up in Sandy, Utah, we found that there's uranium in the water. Pretty crazy. We've got a patient who came from southern Utah, and they had plutonium in the water. And I was like, isn't that from Back to the Future? Like, isn't that what the Libyans like?
Yeah, the Libyans in 21.2 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts, Marty. So yeah, so plutonium, if you have it in your water supply, first of all, we're afraid of a terrorist attack because they may be I'm joking, and hopefully we don't have Libyans on here. It was just like, we're gonna get some hate mail, but it's just from a movie, Back to the Future, all you sensitive creatures. But yeah, so plutonium always has it's a big deal actually, because it's a massive endocrine disruptor. But endocrine disruptors come from plastics. They come from biotoxins. So if you have mold exposure, that blocks your hormones' capability of being metabolized. Look at your labs, because a lot of you we've ran your gut test, and look at beta glucuronidase. Beta glucuronidase will show how well you can conjugate or unconjugate estrogens. And this is a big deal because especially if you've been on birth control is one of the big threats and assaults from a chemical perspective on the thyroid. And so it's, I see so many OBGYN doctors, they have patients that come in, they're 13, they got menstrual cramps, and they're like, well, I think the birth control will help the menstrual cramps. And then there's no risk of, when they become sexually active. And it's like, man, that's just, it's really harming the development of the thyroid. And this is why one of the reasons why I have so much hypothyroid in our society right now. Now, the other one is we're just not getting adequate levels of nutrients. And so then we have chemical imbalances based on deficiencies. So one of the big things you want to do on the chemical side is using some of the biotoxin binders. And many of you are familiar with, we talk a lot about the biotoxin binders, the TUDCA, that opens up the biliary duct so you can actually get rid of the chemicals. And then making sure you've got great bowel movements. These are all really important. All those detoxification pathways, any of that phase 1 and phase 2 in your 60-day reset in your Accelerate program, we're going to be focused a lot on the physical, the emotional, the chemical, but the chemical is a big one, those detoxification pathways. And so the last one we'll talk about, because like I said, I don't want to go on and on about chemicals, but it goes without saying, get clean water. There's the study with fluoride that was done just a couple of years ago. Just by drinking fluorinated water for a week, you're going to have signs of hypothyroidism. So can't stress enough how important it is to get rid of fluoride, chlorine, bromine. Bromine is a preservative. It's everywhere. You know the new car smell, Cade, that some people love, and they actually get air fresheners that smell like it?
Yeah. Is that bromine?
That's bromine. That's a big piece of what you're smelling. You make sure things are preserved.
It does smell good.
It's just got that cozy feeling like, man, I'm in a brand new car, and you just feel like,
Just smells clean.
yeah. Hey, did you watch the Kanye new episode? Like, he's got a new documentary.
No, I didn't even know he had one.
It just dropped on Netflix. So for those of you who are Kanye West fans, the beginning is a bit obnoxious because it literally is a dude with a camera following him around, but kind of interesting to see what he went through. So I was just thinking, like, new car, you got some good rap music playing in the background, put on some Kanye. But anyway, so check it. You'll love it, Cade. All right, so let's jump into the immune. So this is a big one because if you've got infections, so if you look at your labs, you're like, holy cow, my lymphocytes are elevated, my neutrophils are down, I've got high monocytes, and my eosinophils are high. Well, this is where we know that you've probably got some food intolerances with the eosinophils and some allergies. Mold toxicity is always showing up there. But then we're also seeing that a lot of long COVID symptoms are showing up, and they're starting the COVID. And I don't know, I know all of you want to ask the big question, well, is it the vaccine? I don't know, but the spike proteins, what I do know is they're pro-inflammatory, and we're seeing it show up more and more in labs. And we're seeing the ferritin, the C-reactive protein, the homocysteine levels all higher. And it's correlated with high levels of lymphocytes, low neutrophils, and high levels of monocytes. And so it's kind of interesting because there's a good chance that we're putting a lot more burden and stress on our immune systems, and possibly from the treatment. This is where William Osler he was the Yale Medical School director. I don't know if he's still there or not, but he has a famous quote where he says, in medicine, there's always two recoveries, one from the disease and one from the treatment. And with this immune system with COVID, we're seeing, yes, even non-vaccinated patients with long COVID symptoms, it's been pretty brutal on the immune system, which is starting to impact the thyroid. The other side of it that we're seeing is even with, I have a patient who's a medical doctor who had his second booster, and he went into complete hypothyroidism, contracted diverticulitis out of the blue, and it just collapsed him entirely. And so, he's in his mid 50s and had a lot of horsepower. And now he's like, I think I'm going to have to retire. He's cut his days down to like 1 day a week because and it's a short day and he just can't function. And so it's pretty sad when we see this. I don't know and I'm not making any claims that it's because of the vaccine, but he said, yeah, it was about a week later, maybe 2 weeks is when it all kicked in. And so, but when you put your body in that pro-inflammatory state, and if your body's already compromised, and symptoms are the last thing to show up in our body. And so it's almost like we wait until things get really bad, and then we say, oh yes, it's exactly from that. But you have years of trauma that build up, and trauma from physical traumas, emotional traumas, chemicals, traumas to the immune system. And pretty soon that one thing is just like the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so sometimes the immune system, it can be from, history. If you've had mono, that can be a big deal. When you're younger, you can end up with Epstein-Barr virus. If you've had cytomegalomy, if you've had Lyme disease, we see all of these viral infections really start causing this down regulation in your thyroid production. And so this is where, as far as the primary peptides that you want to look at is thymosin alpha 1. That's a classic, but it's very hard to find these days, just because the FDA has asked most of the compounding pharmacies not to make it. The other one is ABP7, that's actin binding potential 7. Which is a thymic peptide. Thymosin beta 4 is really good to regulate the immune response, as is zinc thymulin. These are all some really good strategies. And from a Chinese medical perspective, I love cordyceps, astragalus, reishi, the turkey tail. These are great ways of really creating some immune intelligence. But then you've got to also think about eradicating the infection. And that's where LL37, which is also sounds like a rap name, like LL Cool J, but it's LL37. But what that peptide does is it breaks up the biofilms. So it goes in, and it's a cathelicidin, meaning, it's universal. So it universally can target specific pathogens and eradicate those. And so LL37 is unique to humans only. It's not found anywhere else in the mammal kingdom. And it's actually shown to help improve stem cell proliferation. So it's got some regenerative medicine impacts, and then very good at helping your body's natural defense systems eradicate infections. So that's on the immune side. And one of the things that you can do to keep yourself healthy right now is, remember the nasal spray. Salank is something you can use every day, and then do a little iodine solution. I think Dr. Peter McCullough has probably some of the best research on prophylactics strategies for infections, but a little bit of iodine and some saline goes a long ways if you're spraying your nasal passages 2-3 times a day. I think it's going to give you a lot more benefits than wearing a mask or anything else these days. And so yeah, give that a try. But yeah, that's the thyroid. When the thyroid's healthy, then what happens is your body can start producing more growth hormone. Growth hormone is how we turn back the clock. So your body starts aging in reverse, which we love. We love to see it when your telomere length gets longer. Your biological age improves, gets younger. And then as your growth hormone improves, then you get better muscle strength, better balance, and your whole life improves. So hopefully today was interesting. We can open it up. We got a couple minutes for questions. And so
had a question. Diane asked, what peptide was that? Was it LL37? I think that's the one she's referring to.
If you like gangster rap, yes, it's LL Cool J. But yeah, LL37 is the one to eradicate the infections. Oh, and then Bev says, where does one find a chart on the items of blood test result, and what the results mean? Isabella Wentz, a friend of mine, Bev, I would go to hers. What is her? It's like the thyroid pharmacist, or she's a pharmacist, just like a great human, really sweet. And so she's got some really great things on the meaning behind the thyroid and the chart, as far as the markers go, and the meaning behind what those markers mean. Okay.
And another question: what is astragalus used for?
Astragalus. So astragalus is a jade screen, is what it's called in Chinese medicine, because if you take a jade stone and you wrap a hair around it and you try to light it and burn the hair, you can't burn it, because jade stones has these protective qualities. And so astragalus actually helps your wei qi. So it's a way of activating what's called the AMPK pathway. So when you're ATP, when you're in cell danger response from your mitochondria, you don't produce ATP, and so your energy starts to lag. But what astragalus does is pushes that AMPK pathway, which is like a backup generator. So if the power goes off in your house, you need AMPK, and that reactivates it. So that's what astragalus does, but it also helps create better immune intelligence in the T cells. One of my favorite herbs all time.
Awesome. So immune enhancing and mitochondrial
enhancement. Yeah.
Enhancement.
Good
And then Allison asks, what do you think about prolamine iodine by standard process?
Yeah, that's a great formula, because it's got the right equation of the iodines, the potassium iodide and iodine. And so it's got the right ratio. So prolamine is one of the best. We like nascent iodine. There's a few others. The CT iodine by Cellcore is also has those right ratios. So yeah, it's the ratios, and there's been a bunch of research on that. So that's a great one.
Nice. Well, awesome content today. Thank you so much, Regan, for putting that together for us. And we will be back, everybody, same time, same place next week. And so you guys have an amazing week. Don't forget, you have your 6 challenges on the 60-day reset. We're right about halfway through the, we're right about 30 days. So hopefully you guys are crushing it. And we'll see you guys next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.